960 people trapped on a desert rock decided together that they would not be slaves. The Roman siege ramp is almost finished. I've stood where it stood. You can still see the stones, piled by thousands of hands, climbing that Judean cliff like a scar. In 73 C, the engineers knew exactly what they were building toward, not conquest, inevitability. And on top of that mesa, in the fortress called Masada, the people inside had stopped running. They'd made a choice, a terrible, final choice. Let me back up. The year is 66 CE. Jerusalem burns. The Jewish revolt against Rome has ignited, and it's spreading like fire through dry grass. The Romans don't negotiate with rebels, they obliterate them. Thousands die in the streets. Thousands more are crucified along the roads as warnings. And a man named Eleazar ben Yair, a commander with nowhere left to run, leads a group of survivors, families, fighters, the desperate, up to Masada, an ancient fortress in the wilderness. Masada sits 300 feet above the Dead Sea. It's nearly impregnable from below. Vertical cliffs on 3 sides. A single, narrow path if you know where to look. For years, and I mean years, they held it. They farmed the terraces, stored grain, kept livestock. They weren't hiding. They were living. They were free. Then Rome noticed. In 70 C, the legions came, not a small force. A full legion, around 5,000 men, under the command of Flavius Silva. They surrounded the mesa. They built camps. They waited. And then, methodically, they began constructing that ramp I mentioned. Stone by stone, day after day, climbing toward the fortress gates. Here's what strikes me about this moment, and I say this as someone who's covered conflicts where both sides genuinely believed they were right. The people inside Masada weren't fanatics. They weren't seeking martyrdom. They were ordinary, farmers, merchants, children. They had something Rome wanted, submission, acknowledgement that Rome's power was absolute, that resistance was futile. The ramp grew closer, weeks became months. The defenders built a defensive wall, but they knew the math. Rome had infinite soldiers. Rome had time. Rome had patience. Eleazar gathered the people and made a speech. I've read accounts. The historian Josephus recorded it, and what strikes me isn't the rhetoric. It's the calm, the acceptance. Eleazar's words, as Josephus records them, centered on one idea: enslavement is worse than death. Not because death is noble, because slavery strips you of choice. It strips you of agency. It makes you property. And once you're property, you belong to Rome. Your children belong to Rome. Your future belongs to Rome. That's not philosophy. That's recognition of a reality they couldn't escape. And here's where it gets complicated. This isn't a simple story of martyrs. The people inside didn't unanimously agree. There was resistance. There was fear. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight. But Eleazar's argument had a kind of stoic weight to it, not resignation, but clarity. You cannot control Rome's army. You cannot control the siege. You can only control how you meet it. In the spring of 74 CE, the ramp reached the fortress walls. The Romans brought a battering ram. The defenders set it on fire, temporarily. But they knew it was over. The wall would fall. The soldiers would come. And what happened next is where history gets uncomfortable, because the account suggests they made a choice together. Death by their own hand, rather than death or enslavement by Rome's. Around 960 people died that night. Not in battle, in a coordinated, deliberate act. They drew lots to choose who would be the last to go. Families went together. The silence that followed when the Romans finally breached the wall must have been absolute. They'd expected resistance. They found only bodies and a message: we chose this. Now, I need to be clear. This story has been interpreted 1,000 ways. Heroic last stand, collective suicide, political theater, religious sacrifice. The historical record isn't perfectly clean. Josephus, our main source, wasn't there. But what I keep returning to is the philosophical core. They faced an impossible choice and made it deliberately. That's where the Stoicism lies, not in the outcome, in the clarity. The Stoics taught that virtue, the right action, is the only true good, that you can't control external events. Armies, sieges, empires. You can only control your response, your character, your choice. And Masada, whatever else it was a choice made with full knowledge of its cost. For those of us living now, in an age of infinite options and the illusion of control, Masada asks an uncomfortable question. When circumstances narrow, when genuine constraints appear, what do you actually control? Not the outcome, not the world's response, only how you meet it, only what you choose to be when choice becomes scarce. The Romans found the fortress empty. They left it standing. Today, Masada is a UNESCO site. Tourists climb the ramp, the same ramp, and stand where those 960 people stood. And they ask themselves, what would I have done? That's the real power of the story, not the answer, the question itself. Subscribe, because the most urgent philosophy isn't found in textbooks. It's found in the choices people made when everything was on the line. And there are more of those stories waiting. Subscribe, because the most urgent philosophy isn't found in textbooks. It's found in the choices people made when everything was on the line.